Ander.
Thank you, Ms. Walder. Mr. Cooley, you are recognized.
Colleagues, I want to rise in support of this resolution. I'm very grateful for my colleague, my esteemed colleague from San Diego, and her opening prayer talked about the arc of history bending towards justice. And I rise really almost as a matter of personal privilege, because in the last year and a half, that arc has found its way through my family, as I now have a delightful granddaughter of African American heritage, which I see is the climate that support that change in my life I attribute to Dr. King and his leadership. I know it also bends through this chamber, and on this I speak to my new colleagues. This is a magnificent room where we conduct our business, where we reflect upon justice. And I will just note that in all this exuberance we see around us, there's actually only one place in the room where what we see is actually true gold leaf. Everything is false, except before us where that Latin motto graces our chamber, which accords with this prayer and with the work of Dr. King, my colleagues who have spoken. It is the duty of the legislature to pass just laws. So this idea we celebrate today is reflected even in our own work and the meaning of this institution, and the fact that you can tell your constituents that, oh, everything you see here that looks like gold is not gold leaf, because that would be too expensive and frivolous with taxpayer dollars. But the inscription at the front of the chambers, that is not false. And that goes to our work. And therefore, it is the one place in this room where you see true gold leaf. So we take that to heart. And I would just say, as our careers unfold, the takeaway I would say, when you reflect upon the meaning of Dr. King's life, the style of leadership, what we can incorporate, is that you can sort of draw from his era and his work that where on any issue there is collective fear, one person can bring confidence to a group. If you are dealing with issues where there is collective fear, one person can bring confidence to the group. If you do things with a question mark, everyone will have a question mark. And in an echo of his life, which is why we still talk about him today, we see in him that the role of the leader is not actually to challenge people, but to get them to challenge themselves by acting decisively in the face of problems and injustice. And I'm just honored to be here on the floor, participating and responding to the challenge that he set afire so long ago. Thank you very much.
Ms. Olson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in support of ACR 5 as we all collectively honor the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King. My mom was a teenager here in Sacramento and spent her free time baking and decorating cakes, and she'd walk around the neighbors to her friends and family members and try to sell those cakes because she was trying to raise money so she could go march with Dr. Martin Luther King. And when my sisters and I were growing up, she would tell us that story over and over and over again. And she would remind us, girls, stand up for injustice, stand against the injustices in this world. Pursue your dreams. And that was the great thing about Dr. Martin Luther King, is not only did he change an entire nation, but he changed individual lives and families. And it's up to us now to work together to make sure that all California children, all individuals, all families have the opportunity to pursue their dreams in any neighborhood from any walk of life here in California and across the nation. So thank you, Mr. Joyce Sawyer, for bringing this resolution before the floor today so that we could all, again, collectively remember, honor the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King, and may we all, as individuals in our own spheres of influence, carry on his work and make sure that we're standing up against the injustices in this world and providing people the opportunity to dream and pursue those dreams.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Mr. Chavez, you are recognized.
Well, as a member of the Republican caucus, I thought I'd stand up and support this, as I did last year. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King gave a sermon in 1957, and in that sermon he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." When I reflect over Ferguson, and if you reflect over on what's happened in Paris, I think King would Dr. Martin Luther King would understand that hatred is cheap, it's easy, and it's always destructive. I think sometimes in a secularized world we don't like to say this, but if we actually reflect it, King's pursuit of justice is fundamentally a Christian belief. Not so much a devotion to a political party or to a policy, but Christian discipleship. I'd ask us all to reflect on that when we go through our policies this year and we think about, in celebration of this, it's easy to hate. It's a positive step to love. Carry on the love of life that Jesus Christ has given us. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. So much has been said this morning that is just right on. I also rise in support of ACR 5. George Washington told the American people that the sacred fire of liberty has been entrusted to you, and it was incumbent upon us to continue that, to continue that sacred fire of liberty. And so it is only fitting that today we recognize a man who did more in recent memory to continue that sacred fire of liberty, Martin Luther King, Jr. And it is incumbent upon us here in California and throughout this nation to continue to stoke that sacred fire of liberty to ensure that it shall never perish from this earth. And each day we fight to ensure that the people of our great state continue to have that liberty, that they can continue to live their lives in freedom. That is something that is unique in the world that we have built in this country, that we have built in this state. And every day I go forward thinking about that, about how I can ensure that our people remain free. And also the principle of equality, that my next generation, as it was said, it's a dream. We have not extinguished the great scar of racism from this earth, but every generation we seek to do more to make sure that that is extinguished from this earth. And maybe the next generation, my children who are here today and get to see this, maybe they will be judged solely by the content of their character. Thank you, members.
Madam Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise with a very grateful heart, grateful to have this opportunity to spend a little bit of time to reflect on the life of an incredible human being, and grateful to the California Legislative Black Caucus for giving us this wonderful gift. Whereas if we every day would open it to a page just randomly, we would find something very moving and inspirational to help us move forward in our day with the right kind of attitude, with the right kind of heart. And I know that many of us are going to go home this weekend and we're going to spend Monday going to the breakfast, where we will get more inspiration and inspired to come back and do the work that we do every single day up here. I look forward to spending Sunday with the Human Rights Campaign in San Diego, putting together packets for homeless kids in San Diego County. And so my hope is, as I listen to the wonderful prayer of my colleague from San Diego, as she started this session today, that we somehow have to connect this and the prayer and our feeling right now with every step we take as we leave this chamber, because these are difficult days in our country as we struggle to figure out how to engage in a conversation about what is happening across the country and, in fact, in the world, and how to talk about it. So my hope today is that we don't disconnect these words, these simple yet eloquent words, from every single action or thought we have. And if he is successful, as he has been, because look at what he will generate year and has generated year after year after year as we celebrate from when Ronald Reagan made this a holiday, that we could then rise the visibility of these words. Let us question ourselves every moment we have a thought that seems to be somewhat negative in terms of people's actions. Actions come from pain. and from hurt and from fear. And we have to take those feelings and move beyond it. And so I am, as I sat here and listened to all of you speak, I am grateful, I am thankful, and I hope that I can take a kernel of what I just heard, and in one of those moments where I have a feeling of wanting to go in the opposite direction, remember what a courageous person did in those moments. And he said the thing that he probably felt most like saying the absolute opposite, but he moved. He moved himself. And so I thank you, and I thank the caucus and the members for this wonderful opportunity today. And I know that we're all going to support this resolution, but it's really what we do as we leave here that is more important than pushing a yes voting button on a resolution. So thank you, members.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Jones Sawyer, you may close on the resolution.
I would like for every member of the California Legislative Black Caucus to please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, members, this is the largest number of elected African Americans that we've ever had in the history of the state of California. And there's something that we say in our community a lot, which is, what would King say? And many of my colleagues will tell you, whenever we see injustice, poverty, we think about what would, in fact, on this day, what would an 86-year-old Dr. Martin Luther King say right now? And as I was looking through several of his speeches, and I asked permission, Mr. Speaker, to read, one of them just hit me to the bone, because even though in 1965 he worked real hard to make sure that in Selma that people had the right to vote. If you think about it, people, African Americans, were fighting to vote so that we could stand here in this chamber is amazing. And when he talked about marching and marching for the betterment of everyone, it is amazing that there are a lot of similarities today as it was then. And of course, I lose the speech just when I need it. But he talked about marching to the ballot box to make things better. He talked about ensuring that young people or parents aren't taking food out of their mouths so that their kids can eat. He speaks about having schools that are equal for everyone. He talks about the injustice of young African American males being shot down by the state troopers back then. The story of Jimmy Lee Johnson, who was shot and killed. And in 2005, the perpetrator of that act was convicted. And when he was testifying on the stand, they asked him, "Why did you shoot him?" And he said he feared for his life. He feared for his life of a young African-American male. That was in 65, and now we're in 2015, and we still see the same thing. And I think what Dr. King would say, enough is enough. And we need to start looking at everyone equally. We need to understand who we are, why we are here, that every life, no matter what color, every life is important, and every life should be cherished, encouraged, and raised to the point where we all are able to be the best that we can be. And so I am honored to represent the members of the California Legislative Black Caucus. I am just a humble servant for them, because they are the true backbone. And I believe they are the heart and soul of this legislature. And when you hear the passion of a Ms. Weber, Mr. Holden, who's the majority leader, and when you have Ms. Brown, Mr. Thurman, Mr. Cooper, Ms. Burke, Mr. Ridley Thomas, who's not here, when you see the passion that we're going to have, and Mr. McCarty, When you hear the passion that we have for the services that we need, not only for our community, for everyone, I hope that you understand that it's from the heart and it's from a legacy that goes all the way back to a man who stood on the steps of Montgomery, Alabama, in the Capitol, trying to get the right to vote for African Americans and everyone, that you understand that's from whence we came, and you help us move forward to where we need to be, because that is the true legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Mr. Jones Sawyer asks that the first roll be open for co-authors. This is for co-authors members. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. This is to add on as co-authors on ACR 5. All members vote who desire to vote. This is for co-authors members. We have, the clerk will close the roll. We have 75 co-authors added on the measure. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Hernandez, I understand you have a guest with us this morning. You are recognized at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and esteemed colleagues. Today, as we pay tribute to our wonderful leader, MLK Jr., we paid tribute to the great strengths of diversity that we find not only nationally but in our state here of California. It is what gives us tremendous vitality. It is what gives us tremendous innovation. And visiting us here today, a member of our diverse community here, are the tribal council members and chairman of the Viejas Band of Kumeyaay Indians. They're visiting us here from San Diego County. With us here today is the chairman of the Viejas tribe, Robert Sita Welch Jr., Viejas Tribal Government Vice Chair, Victor E. Woods. Also with us here today, our newly elected Kevin Michael Cardososa, Tribal Councilman, and Gabriel Tessam Jr., and also Sam Brown, the Tribal Treasurer. Please join me in giving them a very warm assembly welcome.
Members, a quick announcement that there is a picture montage honoring Selma, the Selma March, in the Rotunda. Mr. Jones Sawyer wanted me to announce that there is a picture montage of Selma and the civil rights era in the Rotunda. Thank you. Members, moving to announcements and adjournments in memory. Request to adjourn in memory. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. Ms. Gonzalez, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory. Members, please give your attention to Ms. Gonzalez.
Members, well, I hope when you die that maybe the rest of us will listen, because this is one of our own. All right.
Please give your attention to Ms. Gonzalez.
Hey, it's the truth. Members, I rise today as we adjourn and ask that we adjourn in the memory of former Assembly member Peter Pete Chacon. The Honorable Pete Chacon was an accomplished legislator, a Chicano activist, an educator, and community leader, and one of the co-founders of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. Representing South San Diego, Chula Vista, and National City, Pete Chacon's 79th Assembly District largely fell into what is now the 80th Assembly District. He passed away peacefully on December the 14th, 2014, at the age of 89, surrounded by his family. Born in 1925 in Arizona, Assemblymember Chacon was one of 7 children and spent countless hours picking beets in the field before enlisting in the Air Force at the age of 18. A decorated veteran of World War II, Assemblymember Chacon utilized funding from the GI Bill to become the first in his family to attend college, eventually earning a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from San Diego State University. He served as an educator and took his first teaching assignment in Vista, where he found that Spanish-speaking students were not being taught English, but were being labeled what today we call special education and kept away from the general student population. It would spur his commitment to helping empower and educate English language learners. He went on to become the principal of Sherman Elementary School in my community of Sherman Heights. And seeing a need for unified Latino voice in San Diego, he helped found the Chicano Federation in 1968, and the next year was instrumental in the creation of Chicano Park in Barrio Logan. Then in 1970, he overcame tremendous odds, defeated a popular incumbent to become the first Latino Assembly member from San Diego and the second Latino legislator in modern-day California. Assemblymember Chacon served this body from 1970 to 1992, where he was an advocate for housing, education, veterans, and became known as the father of bilingual education. He also used his office as a soapbox for important causes, often ignored by others. In the late 80s, he helped establish the People of Color AIDS Survival Effort Task Force, the very first AIDS organization founded to reach out to educate the Black and brown communities, no doubt work that saved countless lives. He was also instrumental in behind the scenes encouraging the Catholic Church in San Diego to hold a special mass for victims of AIDS in the late 80s. On a personal note, when I was asked in high school on a scholarship application where I saw myself in 20 years, I wrote that I wanted to be Assemblymember Pete Chacon. He served as an inspiration to so many students like myself throughout the years. He was the only public official who looked like us, who fought for us, and who made us proud with his service. Assemblymember Chacon is survived by his 4 sons, Chris, Paul, Ralph, and Jeff, and their wives, 10 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and we're joined today by 2 of his nieces, Frances Chacon and Maria Chacon in the back. They're there somewhere. The great Assembly member, Pete Chacon, is loved and will be missed by all, and I guarantee that his legacy will live on in the classrooms across this state as we continue to fight for English language learners and bilingual education.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Mr. Alejo, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to adjourn in memory of the legendary Assemblymember Pete Chacon, who, as mentioned earlier, was the founder of the Latino Legislative Caucus in 1973. Back then, it was called the Chicano Legislative Caucus. But his life was marked by passion, bravery, and a relentless dedication for promoting human rights and tolerance. Pete grew up during the Great Depression, taking odd jobs to help support his family. And in 1943, in the midst of World War II, he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and served our nation as a gunner on a B-17 Flying Fortress. He flew 35 successful missions over Germany, survived a crash landing, and was honorably discharged as a war hero. With that GI Bill, he went on to pursue his educational dreams and was able to graduate from San Diego State University with the BA in education and his master's in school administration. But in 1969, as was just mentioned by my colleague from San Diego, a man with no prior elected office experience went on to defy the odds and winning that 79th Assembly District at a time when it was only 8% Latino. But his legislative record during that time, during his service, serving in these halls, he was able to author some landmark legislation, the California Housing Finance Agency, the Rural Housing Development Program, and most importantly, he is known as the father of bilingual education, having authored landmark legislation that established the national model for bilingual and bicultural education programs that serve our English language learners. As a fellow legislator, it's always important to look back on the people who paved the way for people like me, now serving the Monterey Bay Area, different parts of the state where there wasn't significant Latino populations, but now they're being served by legislators because we were legislators who opened the door for people like me to serve here and continue the work of Assemblymember Pete Chacon. We honor his family and his children and his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, for his tremendous service to our state and to our country.
Dr. Weber, do you wish to speak? Dr. Weber, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker and Madam Speaker, I rise today in honor of Pete Chacon, who was an assemblyman of tremendous character and purpose in life. When I moved to San Diego in 1972, Pete Chacon was my assemblyman. He was the first elected official I actually met, and we became very good friends. He was a man of tremendous vision for our community. And even though he was our first Chicano elected officials, he represented all of San Diego. And the African-American community found in Pete a friend, someone who championed our cause, who fought our battles with us, and who was always supportive. Pete and I had a special love because he was an educator and I was an educator, and we were activist educators because we were always working to try to change the educational community in which we existed. And so I could always call on Pete when Africana Studies and Chicano Studies were under attack in the early days when we were developing those departments in 1972. Pete Chacon was always there, always at the administration, always supportive of all of those departments and their mission. And we knew that we had a friend in Pete Chacon. And he obviously championed the cause of bilingual education. He championed the cause of bicultural education in California. And he was truly a great friend until he left the assembly for all of us. And so I just simply want to say that even though sometimes we look and we say, well, he's our representative because he looks like us, and that always brings us pride. But oftentimes when you're in a community and there isn't a person who looks like you, what you look for is the heart of the person, the mission of the person. And he identified with all of us who were struggling to try to create a California that was better for everyone. And so we honor Pete because he lived a wonderful life, a man who started off with very simple things in life and yet continued to grow and to develop and to challenge and to really reach heights that no one ever thought he would, because he wasn't an eloquent speaker. He wasn't a dynamic person when you saw him, but he was a genuine person with a big heart who loved us all, who gave so much to San Diego. And I'm just honored that he was my assemblyman for his entire political career, and I'm honored that I serve in the 79th district that he once served. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would just like to add a couple of comments to those of my colleagues, particularly from San Diego County and my colleague from Watsonville. You know, one of the things that strikes me most about his history is that he believed so much in the good that California State Assembly could accomplish that he sold his house and drained the pension he had as a school teacher in order to get here. And I think that's a reminder of the power of this body to make a difference that we should all carry with us. Looking at his career, I can't help but notice the vision that he had in so many areas, some already mentioned, but one is in the LGBT community. In a time when there were no out LGBT elected officials in the state of California, Pete Chacon appointed out members of the San Diego's LGBT community to the Democratic Central Committee, State Central Committee, to provide visibility and an important position to help guide the party's platform. And as, of course, my colleague from San Diego said, he also established the People of Color AIDS survival effort. That was significant at that time. And in 1987-88 session, Pete Chacon had a 100% voting record for affordable housing legislation. You got to love that. And of course, as my colleague from Watsonville said, he was the one who helped create the California Housing Finance Agency, and he also wrote the Homeless Relief Act of 1986. It was an act that passed both houses and was actually signed by Governor Deukmejian, although he vetoed the funding that went with it. If Pete Chacon's vision had been given truly the chance that it deserved 30 years ago, who knows what progress and prevention could have happened in so many areas that we still work to obtain today. So I rise today simply just to recognize a great man from San Diego County, and not only to remember him, but to thank him for the vision on so many of these issues and his leadership for the city and the county of San Diego, and in fact the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ms. Garcia, you are recognized from your desk.
Mr. Speaker, Madam members, on Friday, January 2nd, 2015, the world lost a pioneer, a visionary, and a leader of the American Muslim community. Born in Egypt in 1936, Dr. Maher Hathout has been an activist and a thinker dedicated to the cause of freedom and Islam since his childhood. Widely regarded as the father of the American Muslim identity, he stressed for more than 4 decades that being a faithful Muslim was entirely compatible with being a proud American. Dr. Hathout was an inspirational activist, and those of us who emphasize interfaith coexistence and cooperation do so in his shadow. His dedication to his faith and interfaith understanding was never ending. He was truly an ambassador for his faith, and in doing so, exemplified what it means to be an American. While his loss will be severely felt in the interfaith community, we can celebrate his memory by practicing what he spent his whole life advocating: mercy, equity, and justice. My thoughts and prayers go out to his friends and family during this difficult time.
Ms. Lopez, you are recognized from your desk.
Mr. Andrade Crouch changed the sounds of the modern gospel music, which combined jazz, light rock, pop, African American word. His songs have become a staple popular rhymes in churches around the world. His influence touched all cultures, music, ties from the music like Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley, Paul Simon, and Madonna, to the Color of Purple, Lion King, to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Mr. Crouch was born on July 1st, 1942, in Los Angeles, was a longtime resident of the 39th Assembly District, and a senior pastor of the New Crest Church, which was founded by his parents. He was missed very much. Mr. Crouch is now survived by his sister.
Madam Speaker, do you wish to speak? You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join with my colleague to rise and adjourn in memory of Andre Crouch, a man whose songs have resonated in churches around the globe, and in fact right here in this assembly chamber. Last May, when I was sworn in as Speaker, I was surprised and very touched that Senator Holly Mitchell had arranged for a local choir to perform Through It All, my favorite gospel song by my favorite gospel artist, Andre Crouch. This was a man who touched countless lives through his music and his ministry. In fact, as a young teenager and part of a Pentecostal holiness church, our church was just outraged to find that all the new rage was contemporary Christian music, and that they were worried about that contemporary Christian music. So we would spend Friday nights at a Christian coffee house And it's where I came to know the music of Andre Crouch and how he could move young people with a new brand of music that would keep us inspired and on the right path. That was part of many of his talents, but another one which is special to me, one of my favorite books by one of the great authors and great philosophers from San Diego County, Dr. Seuss. He was the voice of Yertle the Turtle, my favorite book, in a movie about Dr. Seuss. This was a man, though in poor health of late, never let his spirit flag. When he passed, Andre Crouch's twin sister, Sandra, who co-pastored with him the church that their father founded, said, "Today my twin brother, womb mate, and best friend went home to be with the Lord. I tried to keep him here, but God loved him best." Of all the awards Andre Crouch received, the Grammys, the Oscar nomination, the Gospel Music Association Award, the Star, mentioned by my colleague on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one stands out to me. In 2012, Andre Crouch received the How Sweet the Sound Living Legend Award. And these are some of the words to Through It All. Permission to read. Mr. Speaker.
Without objection.
I thank God for the mountains, and I thank him for the valleys. I thank him for the storms he brought me through. For if I'd never had a problem, I wouldn't know God could solve them, and I'd never know what faith in God could do. How sweet the sound indeed. Godspeed, Andre Crouch.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ms. Jones Sawyer, you were recognized.
And I rise on behalf of the California Legislative Black Caucus to adjourn the memory of Andre Crouch, whose musical career as a gospel singer and writer spanned over 50 years. Even though he struggled with dyslexia, Andre Crouch wrote some of the most beautiful gospel songs that will live on long, long after he is gone. Members, please join me in expressing our condolences, not only to the family, but to the world on his passing, for the passing of a son of California, whose life made our lives so much richer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones Sawyer. Mr. Jones Sawyer, you are again recognized at your desk for your adjournment in memory.
Mr. Speaker and fellow members, I ask the Assembly to adjourn in memory today of a former legislative staffer, Carolyn Jean Robinson, who recently passed away on December 30th, 2014. Ms. Robinson served as a Senate staffer for over 27 years. She began working in the building as a scheduler for then-Senator Nate Holden and ended her career as a principal policy consultant for the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. Ms. Robinson was also a principal policy consultant to the late Senator Teresa Hughes and Capitol Director to the late Senator Edward Vincent. She was a faithful member of Shiloh Baptist Church, Antioch Progressive Baptist Church, Faith Fellowship, and Center of Praise in Sacramento. You could often find Carolyn serving as a greeter on Sunday morning, mentoring young girls in the Sisters Helping Sisters program, or studying the Bible with friends. Ms. Robinson was a wonderful grandmother who loved every minute she spent with her grandchildren. She enjoyed spending time with her daughters, traveling, hiking, good food, entertaining, and shopping. She blessed everyone who crossed her path. Her warmth, wisdom, kindness will be missed. Thank you.
Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn a memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. All other items remaining, members, let me announce our upcoming sessions. The session schedule is as follows. Monday, January 19th, holiday, no check-in session. Tuesday, January 20th, session at noon. Now, all other items remaining will be passed and retained. Now, motions shall be continued. Seeing and hearing no further business, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Holden moves. Ms. Waldron seconds that this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, January 20th at noon. Quorum call is lifted.